Welcome to the George Thomas Clark podcast. Today we're talking to a young writer, book publisher, and book promoter named Jordan Ring, who is in Lisbon, Portugal, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Jordan, welcome.
Well, thank you, Tom. I'm so happy to be here. Overjoyed to be on the show. So thank you so much for the invite. Can't wait to chat with you today.
Like a lot of people, I've heard of Lisbon and I've seen photos of it. I have not been there. I've been to Madrid, which is the closest by. So I did some work online. I noticed that it's has a population of 550,000 in the city limits, but as in most cities, that doesn't tell you the breadth of a place. It's more like 3 million in the metro area. What is your overall opinion of Lisbon? I mean, it's obviously a large city, a beautiful city. How do you find it?
Oh, wow. It's such a great question because we've absolutely loved Lisbon. It was one of those things. It's been just a surprise from the beginning. When we first got here, we walked around and just experienced different things. I had never been here before. I have still not been to most places in Europe. I'm hoping to get to a lot more in the future. But yes, absolutely loved Lisbon. Just walking around, experiencing all the different foods, the sights and sounds. But yeah, my first impression was great, and it's been really cool spending the last couple months here.
Now, I speak some Spanish, and I used to teach English as a second language for adults. I still do some tutoring. And over the years, I picked up quite a bit of Spanish, which is similar to English. And of course, Portuguese is very similar to Spanish. Do you speak any Spanish or Portuguese?
I wish that I could say that I did. Unfortunately, no. I am just an English speaker. I've been able to, say the short phrases such as thank you and goodbye and those things just barely enough to communicate and be polite. But no, unfortunately, I don't know much Spanish or Portuguese.
Well, I think you may have picked up a little bit more had it not been for this doggone quarantine, which has had all of us cooped up for about 2 months now. I assume you live in an apartment in Lisbon?
Yeah, so we're in an apartment right now that was originally an Airbnb, and since we've just been renting it from the owner. But yeah, it's a small apartment, me and my wife. And yeah, ever since the quarantine went down, we've pretty much spent most of our time in here. We still get out and about at times and go for walks and just try to get out, obviously not around other people, do the best we can to do all the social distancing stuff. But yeah, it's been a few months now here. It's very interesting.
Now, do you find that the people of Lisbon are observing social distancing to the degree that they are in the U.S., even though you're not in the U.S., just from what you heard in the...
Yeah, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, people here have taken it very seriously and really have done a good job of following the protocol. Now, of course, as we're walking and running, there's some people that don't seem to take it too seriously. But as far as the most part, it seems like people are very, very good about keeping their distance, wearing masks when they need to, and just trying to keep the numbers down. Overall, Portugal has done a really good job of keeping the numbers in check and not to explode off of any crazy amount. So that's been really good. So I think it's been just a collective effort for sure.
Well, that's what it takes. Yeah, I noticed that.
Yes.
I looked yesterday that Portugal has 1,100 deaths. So, like you say, they haven't gone crazy. Surprisingly, the nation with the highest rate of death in the world per million is Belgium. And so some of the more advanced countries technologically, Spain, Italy, France, the United States, and England, the two English-speaking countries, ironically, are the two leaders in the world in deaths per million. So we hope certainly that this thing is going to start slowing down, although there aren't really too many indications that it's slowing down except in the New York City area and China.
Yeah. Definitely a very interesting situation, interesting times we live in.
Now, you had many European cities to choose from. Why and how did you choose Lisbon?
Okay, so that's also a great question. So in September of 2019, so last year, my wife and I went to the country of Macedonia for a wedding. And then we also at that time went to Switzerland. And those were my first two places that I had been to in Europe, believe it or not. We loved both of those places, had a really great experience. And after September of last year, my wife and I got together and we started brainstorming different places. And Lisbon just kept coming up as a really good place for digital nomads to be. And we consider ourselves to be digital nomads, just meaning we both have remote jobs and enjoy traveling. And, we don't have kids now, so it's very easy for us to pick up and move different places. So yeah, we consider ourselves digital nomads, and Lisbon is an up and coming place for digital nomads. So that was one of the main reasons. But just for me, experiencing Europe like I did last September and just really enjoying it and really falling in love with just Europe in general and just wanting to see as many cities as I can.
Well, that definitely sounds exciting, and you're picking the right time of life. That is your youth to do it, because as for example, I graduated from high school. I don't want to date myself too much, but I graduated from high school in 1970, and my first 7 or 8 years out of high school, I moved 27 times.
Wow.
I would take lawn bags and just fill them, and then put them in the car and boom. Whereas now,
that's
if I
amazing.
move, it's a weeks long project. Not that I don't think I've got that many possessions. So anyway, it's good that you're a nomad now. As we mentioned, you're a writer, a publicist, a publisher, and other things we'll talk about later. Is your wife a teacher? What does she do online?
So my wife has done several different things. Right now, she works for a calendar app called TeamUp. And you can see that just by going to teamup.com. And she does support for them, but also does content and other fun stuff for them. She's been doing that for over a year now and very much enjoys it. Now, that this company is based out of Switzerland is actually the reason we went to Switzerland to see the company and just get together and hang out with them and get to meet them in person, which was really nice. But yeah, she's enjoying it and loves it a lot.
Now, you mentioned Macedonia, and whenever I hear Macedonia, the first person I think of is Alexander the Great. Is he still talked about, or do they have any museums or statues commemorating him?
Yes, for sure. There was in the capital in Skopje, in Macedonia, there are statues everywhere. They're very big on that. Which is cool because you can just walk around and see a bunch of different things. And yeah, they're very much invested in that, in their history. And that was really cool. We got to get the tour of Macedonia by someone who grew up there, which was pretty special. And then to go to a Macedonian wedding was just definitely a once in a lifetime experience. And it's something we'll cherish for sure.
Great. Lisbon looks like a place first of all, looking where it is on the map and then verifying it with weather charts, looks like it's in the low 80s in the summer with little rainfall. So there's therefore not that bad humidity. And then the winter, it's in maybe the high 40s on the low side, and then in the 50s and 60s with 30 inches of rain. In other words, it sounds like a very moderate place with great weather. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually kind of surprising to us. I would have expected it to vary a little bit more. But honestly, ever since we've been here, and maybe we've been here since the beginning of January, so it was a little bit colder in the beginning of January. I would say maybe low 50s with some rainy days. But ever since, I would say February, it's been very consistent at around 60 to 70 degrees. Very surprisingly consistent, especially since I come from the East Coast. And pretty much no matter where you are in the East Coast, it seems like temperature varies pretty widely. So I'm used to kind of going up and down. So it's been kind of nice to be here and have it be kind of more consistent.
Yeah, well, it sounds like basically what you have described is some of the finest weather in the world, which is like
Oh, yes.
Southern California, maybe a little different, but similar to Southern California beach area from, say, Santa Barbara on south down into San Diego and the northern part of Baja California. Nice and moderate. Now, before the lockdown, what were some of your favorite activities in Lisbon? You mentioned you've been doing a lot of walking, but what are some of the other things you were doing around town?
Oh yeah, so definitely walking and eating is a huge pastime of ours. We just like to try different foods, try different restaurants, and do those kind of things. And of course, walking as well, just to see different places and experience it out on the ground in a slow kind of way. But otherwise, we've done a lot of the more touristy things in Lisbon. We visited some of the castles and got to walk around some of those. We did some other Airbnb experiences. This one guy led us on a bike tour through the city, which I thought was really cool. I've never done anything like that before, so it was a great way to experience the city. We also did they have a music. They're very much into a music genre called fado, and we went to a fado performance at a restaurant, which was very interesting. Nothing I'd ever been to before. But yes, we experienced a lot. We did a lot in a month, before everything shut down and there was nothing really going on anymore. Which I was glad that we were able to get a lot of that stuff in and just really feel like we were experiencing it. But in a very slow way. We're not people that like to jump into a place and do everything we can in a week. Now, you certainly could do that in Lisbon, and the people that like that would enjoy that. But my wife and I appreciate the slower travel and, being able to take a couple days just to relax. And then, maybe we take a fun day over the weekend. And, that's our preferred method. But yeah, it's been a great place.
Do they have good art museums? I'm really into art, so that's always something I check on.
Yes, I've heard that they do. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go to any. It was on our list of potential things to look into and go. That's something we enjoy doing every once in a while. So yeah, as far as I've heard, yes, they do.
All right. Now, do you think, how long do you think you're going to be there? Do you have any idea at all?
It's really hard to say. I think it's the beginning of May now. We'll probably be here until the middle of June. That's kind of what we're thinking. And then where to next? We're not sure. Who knows?
Well,
we'll see. We'll see where we can go.
Are you thinking of staying in Europe for a while rather than returning back to the United States for the time being?
I think if we could stay longer, we would probably do that. But our Schengen tourist visa was extended, but it's only going to be extended until the end of June. So we kind of have to make other plans other than Europe, unless there's another extension due to what's going on, which potentially could happen. So I think very much there's a lot up in the air.
Okay, I think a lot of our listeners like me don't know what a Schengen visa is.
Sure, yeah. So I didn't either till we got here. The Schengen visa is for most countries within the European Union. Once you get into any of those countries, they just, if you're from the U.S., you can stay there for up to 90 days. But then you can travel between those countries. So if I was in Lisbon, Portugal, and I wanted to go to Barcelona, Spain, I could make that trip and not have to get a restamp in my passport or not have to have it be considered any kind of a change because it's all within that visa. Not restriction is not the right word, but how they do it.
Okay. Now, one thing, I mentioned my many moves when I was young, and the logistical difficulties weren't that tough because I hadn't accumulated that much stuff. Now, did you guys have to leave some stuff in storage in the U.S. before going to Portugal?
We left just a few things, but for the most part, we sold off, I would say 95% of what we had or gave it away. We gave a lot of stuff away, which was good. I feel like we had friends that got to get certain things and get use out of it. instead of versus just throwing it away. But yeah, most of our stuff was either given away. I mean, we did save a few items that we may need at some point. We have it spread across our different places across the east coast of the U.S. But for the most part, yeah, this adventure was kind of that idea of selling everything and just experiencing travel.
You mentioned the East. Now, I think you were living in the in the South, the southern part of the East, before leaving. Where was that, and where are you from originally?
Yeah, so we were in North Carolina we lived there about 4 years. Prior to that, we were in Pennsylvania, which is actually where my wife grew up. So we were in Pennsylvania for college, and then 4 years after that. And then I actually grew up in Maine. So when I say East Coast, I'm very familiar with going up and down the East Coast to visit different family members, and that's where I've done a bulk of my travel. But yeah, Maine to Pennsylvania to North Carolina.
Well, Maine is way up there. It's our northeasternmost state. I confess I haven't been there, but I know that it's a beautiful state. Is it? Are the winters horrific or somewhat modified or made more moderate by the coast? In other words, it's not like Montana, I would assume.
No, I think whether they're horrific is all perspective. I definitely see them as horrific now, as someone who is not a fan of the cold and snow and all of that nonsense. But my parents don't. My parents still live there. My younger brother still lives up there, and they get by. Mainers are tough people. I think I've lost a little bit of my Maine toughness. I wouldn't be able to handle it anymore, for sure.
Now, were you ever able to drive? I assume it's not a museum yet. So, did you ever drive by or see Stephen King's house?
No, I did not. But my dad actually was in the same class as Stephen King. Now, big class up at college at, I believe it was University of Maine at Orono. But no, we didn't. We never had the opportunity to drive by his house.
Okay. Now, let's move on into the publishing realm on YouTube.
Sure.
I often watch YouTube videos by Jordan and Rob Archangel of Archangel Inc., and they deal with a variety of issues. One of the most recent, within the last month, they were talking about during this pandemic, is it good to publish or not publish? And they talked about, well, there are logistical difficulties with paperbacks that you don't have with ebooks. And many people, myself included, are more ebook oriented. What is your thinking about the timing of publishing during this era?
Yeah, I think it is such a great question, and I applaud the authors that are getting ready to launch a book or thinking about it and are asking that question. Because I mean, I think the landscape has definitely changed. I think this virus and this pandemic has changed. Probably if not everything, a lot. And I know it's definitely uprooted a lot of people and just made things different than they were before. I think it's still, my whole opinion with publishing, if you're ready to go and you've done all the work, I don't think it's something you hold on to for too long. I think things will definitely even out at some point. I saw a dip in my sales personally when the virus was initially causing a lot of the mayhem and people weren't sure what was going on. But I'm already seeing the curve upward at this point. So I think it's just something where, as I shared in that video that Rob and I did, Tom, if you were unfortunate to launch, at the middle of March, toward the end of March, I think that would have really been a tough time to do it because everyone's attention was elsewhere. But I think as we, go into the depths of this quarantine, as the quarantine starts to come to an end, I think for the most part things will start looking up as far as publishing goes. I think the print book realm will start to open up, and I think everything will adjust at some point back to maybe not back to what it was, but it's just going to be different.
Right. Now, another issue you guys have raised, I believe, in consecutive YouTube videos is contacting Amazon book reviewers. And in one of those, you alluded to me, not by name, but by reference to what I told you when we were having a phone conference several months ago, that back in the old days, meaning 15 years ago, you could contact any Amazon reviewer through an internal email. They called that Amazon Friends, not like a Facebook Friends where you didn't have to ask their permission. You could simply contact them and say, "Hey, I see that you reviewed a book similar to one I have written," and it was really effective for my first book, which is Hitler Here, a biographical novel. And to this day, I have more reviews, even though Amazon has taken some of them down. And that's another issue with Amazon. Reviews sometimes disappear.
Yes.
Reviewers can take stuff down, but I think more often it's Amazon itself that's taking them down. But anyway, you have become a noted expert in the new science, given the fact that Amazon has stripped its site not only of the aforementioned internal email system, but of even emails and websites. Tell us a little bit what you're doing to help authors contact Amazon reviewers.
Yeah, sure. So, as we were saying, Amazon used to provide a lot more information on their author profiles, or reviewer profiles, as they call them. So, if you were to leave a review on a product on Amazon, you would be most likely, I believe, I don't know if Amazon does it automatically anymore, but they used to create a reviewer profile for you. And then because you left that review, your email would be there because you have to sign in to your account and everything. Your email would be listed, that anyone could potentially grab your email from if they were to look at your review, your reviewer profile. They could see that. Now, it was back 2.5 to 3 years ago now that Amazon, I think around that time frame, Amazon removed the emails from from the reviewer profiles. And as of right now, all they have for the people that have entered the information, they have the person's website or potentially their Facebook account or YouTube, or I think they have different social media listings. But those people have to actually go in and put those there. It's not an automatic process. So it's definitely changed the game as far as contacting those people who have left reviews. So the whole idea is to contact people that have left reviews to books similar to yours. So if you're going to launch a book about, let's say, dog training or something, you would search on Amazon for other books that are very similar and that talk about that type of content. And then you would check and see if those types of books have reviews. And if they do, you would comb through those reviews and see if anyone has their website or contact information listed on their profile. And then once you do that, you can go and contact them and strike up a conversation and offer a copy of your book and say, hey, I noticed you did a review for this book A on dog training. I'm writing a book on dog training as well. And then you can kind of give a little bit of information about your book. And then, you're really just pitching them and saying, hey, would you be willing to read my book in exchange for your honest feedback and honest review once I launch it on Amazon?
Yeah, and at that point, the authors are sending them, I suppose, a package of whether it would be a MOBI file or an EPUB file, whatever the reader's whatever the reader's preference is. Do you send out kind of a little file package of options in that regard?
Yeah, so I always, when I get the emails, when I send them out to the people once I have the contact information, I always make sure to put at the end to say, hey, let me know what type of file you would like. Here's what I have. Usually it's digital PDF, MOBI, or the EPUB edition, and I just let the person that's going to be reading the book, I let them choose. They just tell me in the response which they would like, and then I will send it to them. I never send a copy of the book before I've gotten the yes, the all clear to send it.
Which is a good idea, because I've sent I've written 10 books, and I have many times I have just said, hey, I know that this person will be interested, and I just send it. And that's not really the way to do it. It's worthwhile, as I mentioned with the first book, when it was easier to contact, but it's worth to do whatever you have to in order to contact the right people and to get there okay. Because otherwise it's going to end up for sale on Amazon, or who knows where it'll end up. So
yes, exactly. And the big piece of that is really, as soon as you can, getting some kind of discussion and engagement and relationship with that reviewer, so that you can talk to them. You can talk about the book. You can talk about when it's going to launch, and to be able to share those details. And I think sometimes if you were to just send the book, it's harder to then follow up because you don't know whether that person ever agreed to review the book or not. So it's always good to get some kind of response first before you add them to your list.
Okay, that leads us to a two-part question. Are you writing a book right now? And obviously you're having a pretty adventurous time in a number of ways. Will you be writing a book about this adventure in Lisbon?
So great. I love your questions, Tom. They're great. So right now, I'm currently working on a couple different projects. I'm not actually writing a book, which for me, for the last 2 or 3 years is quite rare. Usually I'm working on my next book, or I'm at least some part in the process of a book. But no, I'm not writing a book currently. And I have it on my list to, I think, potentially write a book about this adventure. I'm going to have to find a way to spin it in some kind of way that's not just a generic travel book. I think people might be interested in it. I'm not sure what spin I'm going to put on it that people might be interested to read. Whether it's just like, talking about the different places or whatnot. I haven't decided on that yet, but I think it would be a very interesting book, or potentially maybe just long blog post to kind of catalog my adventures.
Well, of course, one great thing about technology, what is a long blog post can very easily become an ebook.
Yes.
Now, in regard to your approach, I think you've got just some of the things we've talked about today, the selling all your stuff, telling people about that's an interesting subject to many people, liquidating yard sales, estate sales and such, and then traveling over there, having a good month, and then the coronavirus, and then life, as you've described it, hunkered down, but doing your electronic work and walking around when you can and such. And then, of course, the adventure's not over. So anyway, I think you have the makings of a book. But if you choose to go that route, I will certainly buy it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So we'd like to thank Jordan Hare of Archangel Inc., writer, publisher, book strategist, and online adventurer, as well as European traveler. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you having me, Tom. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time here.
Okay.